Good morning and Boker Tov. This Shabbat is the final Shabbat of the Jewish calendar year. And the final Torah portion is a double Torah portion. We're going to read a combined double Torah portion called Nitzavim and Vayelech. Now the opening verse of Nitzavim says, you are standing before Almighty God today to enter into a covenant with God. Atem Nitzavim Hayom. You are standing here together as a Jewish nation. The second Torah portion we read is Vayelech. It begins by saying, Vayelech Moshe. Moshe went and spoke all these words to the Jewish people. But when you combine the two names, it seems to be an oxymoron. It seems to be a contradiction in terms. Nitzavim means standing. Vayelech means going, walking. So the name of the Torah portion combined is Nitzavim Vayelech, standing and going. And the question is, how could you have two names that have opposite meanings? And perhaps this is the final message before we begin the new year. You know, there's an old adage. It's not enough to talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. You see, all of us take a stand. We have positions. We have values and principles that we stand up for and proclaim and declare. Nitzavim, this is what we stand for. This is what we represent in our lives. These are our values, our principles, our morals, our ethics, our worldview and perspective. But then the question is, Vayelech, do you walk the walk? Do you go and take that with you in your day-to-day life? Do you exemplify, personify, act according to the very principles that you stand for? And that's the closing message. Yes, on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we're all going to stand in synagogue and we're going to think about our lives and we're going to take positions that we stand for, how we want to live, how we want to conduct ourselves. But then the challenge is, Vayelech, can you actualize it? Can you carry it with you and walk with those guiding principles every day of the year and live by those positions and resolutions that you took on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? And I want to give you an example of someone who doesn't walk the walk and someone who does. You know, the General Assembly is beginning now in New York and world leaders are coming in from all over the world. And one of the people that's going to speak tomorrow is President Zelensky from Ukraine. And frankly, he's a hypocrite. Because last week, the UN issued another terrible resolution against Israel, declaring that Israel has 12 months to pull out of all of the territory beyond the 1967 border, which means they're saying that Israel should withdraw not only from Judea and Samaria, but from the old city of Jerusalem and from the Western Wall. And the resolution went on to say that not only that all goods beyond the 1967 line should be boycotted. And it went on to say, this resolution, that no countries should sell arms to Israel, should be an arms embargo. And 124 countries in the UN voted for this resolution. Only 14 opposed it. And then there were 43 countries that abstained. They couldn't find their moral guide to take a position against it. They just abstained from a vote. And one of those countries was none other than Ukraine. And I find it hypocritical that President Zelensky is going to come to the UN once again and bemoan the fact that Russia invaded them unjustly and is killing their civilians. And he's right. But then when it comes to Israel and Hamas invades at October 7th, there's no support for Israel. On the contrary, he supports the terrorists and says they should get back their land, even though they started the war in 1967 unprovoked, just like Russia attacked Ukraine. He doesn't apply the same position that he will take in the UN for Ukraine to Israel. He doesn't afford Israel the same right to defend themselves as he wants for his people. That's talking the talk but not walking the walk. That's being a hypocrite. That's being a fake and a phony. And he doesn't deserve to be listened to because, sadly, although he's a Jew, he doesn't stand with his own brothers and sisters in Israel. He applies two standards, double standards, one for Ukraine and one for Israel. But let me give you an example of a Jew who not only talks the talk, who not only takes a position, but he acts on it. Last week, everyone knows the custom in the New York Stock Exchange. They opened the day's trading with the ringing of the bell, with great excitement. and they invite different people to ring the bell. And when that bell rings, it means let's go, let's do business, let's trade stocks, let's make money. But a Jew was invited last week by the name of Jay Schottenstein. His company, American Eagle, is celebrating 30 years on the New York Stock Exchange. And he was given the honor last week of ringing the opening bell. Jay Schottenstein is a religious Jew. Matter of fact, the famous Schottenstein Talmud from Art Scroll, he sponsored that. And around the world, literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people study his Talmud every day around the world. And he was given the honor of opening the stock exchange. And he stood up in front of the world. And before he rang the bell, he explained that we're in the month of Elul. Elul is the time to awaken and arouse ourselves to return to God, to hear our inner voice, our inner calling and mission and purpose in this world. And the cry of the shofar is the calling of our soul to God and God's calling to us. And he said, before we ring the bell, I'd like to begin, as I do every day in Elul, by blowing the shofar. And there he stood up as a proud Jew, put on his cap, took out the shofar, and blew the shofar for the whole world to hear. This was a man who was saying, yes, God has blessed me with success and 30 years on the New York Stock Exchange. But first and foremost, before we ring the bell of materialism, let's ring the bell of spirituality, because this is what I really represent and stand for in my life. This is the message of Nitzavim Vayelach. Think about what you stand for, what your values are, what your ideals are. And then Vayelach, go out, walk, act, do, implement, practice everything you believe in. Have a wonderful day.